Is this the best Stephen King adaptation yet? Hey there, creepy peeps. I just saw the adaptation of The Long Walk, which is adapted from a novel by Stephen King, who is writing as Richard Bachman. The movie is directed by Francis Lawrence and written by J.T. Molnar. But before I saw the movie, I read the book. Of course. The story is kind of a dystopian light tale that takes place in the US, where there is an annual long walk in which 100 young men participate in this walk, where if they stop or fail to maintain at least 4 miles per hour, they are killed. The novel was written by King in response to the Vietnam War. We find out that participants sign up to be considered to participate in the long walk, and they're subjected to physical and mental tests before they are accepted, which very much echoes a draft-like situation. And throughout the walk, of course, we see various physical and mental horrors that come with just constantly having to walk and not being able to stop. It definitely echoes the horrors that young men were subjected to during the Vietnam War. At first, I wasn't really sure if the metaphor really landed, because as you enter the story, all you know is that all of the young men chose to be there. But at one point they do discuss how voluntary the walk actually is, which makes the metaphor fit a little bit better. The most disturbing part of the story is the spectacle of the long walk. So as the men are walking, they go through various towns and people kind of line up on the streets to watch them walk, and parts of the long walk are also televised. This highlights a morbid obsession we have with violence and the disconnect that can happen when violence and cruelty are made entertainment via TV/film, and that kind of separation of the screen that also happens, that makes you feel like even though you're watching real life violence, it almost feels like it's fake, or you can pretend that it's fake because it's on the other side of a screen. I feel like that particular theme is one of the more relevant things of the story that could be applied today, and I think that makes this story ripe for an adaptation. And there's a lot in this story that I think is still applicable today. Plus we have Francis Lawrence directing. He's helmed every single Hunger Games adaptation to date, and those books are very different, but these both fall under the category of dystopia. And Francis Lawrence has also done a lot of adaptations as well, so many adaptations. So that kind of gave me confidence going in that the messaging that I wanted to see with this adaptation was going to be achieved, and boy did it deliver. The adaptation of The Long Walk was so well crafted for today, and the Vietnam allegory I feel transfers very easily to this idea of intense gun violence that school children and everyday people just going to the grocery store, going to the movies, going to church are subjected to every day in the old US of A. The movie did not shy away from showing these young people being shot at point blank range. In fact, they made sure that you see it, and you see the intense horrific gore that happens when you're shot at such a close range with such a powerful rifle. One of the most intense moments of gore happen very early on in the movie, and it sets the tone for the rest of it, where it's this is the point, and they make that very clear, which I thought worked so well. As intense as it was, I was happy to see that they weren't going to shy away from that, because you see it happening damn near every day. And I feel people are kind of falling into one of two categories almost, where you have the one group that kind of offer now meaningless platitudes of thoughts and prayers, and the other side of people maybe just being numb to hearing about it because we hear about it so often now. And this movie said, you're gonna face it and you're gonna look at it. You can't separate yourselves from this. The movie also, very interestingly, leaned a lot more into the dystopian kind of threads of the story, more than the book did. In the book, it felt, like I said earlier, kind of dystopian light, Like, it felt very much like everything about the world of the book was the same to our own, except this one thing, the Long Walk. They don't really like go deep into anything else in the book. This adaptation expands the world a little bit more with, like, we hear about extreme book bans, definitely a nod to the ones happening today, and a more like overtly totalitarian government. And that's just one of actually quite a few things that this adaptation changes from the book. Because I mean, you can't change all that much, because ultimately the main thing is that you have these kids and they're walking until only one of them remains. But some details about certain characters are changed or mashed together with other characters. I thought the changes, especially to Peter McVree's character, made the story a lot richer, and none of them seemed like empty changes. Even when I kind of clocked them early on, at some point later on in the movie, the reasoning why they changed it came up, and I'd be like, oh, okay, so this made sense. So it's really nice to see when you go into an adaptation that it was clearly done with care and clearly done with a knowledge of the source material. Quick warning, beyond this point, I am talking spoilers. I waited till after the first weekend to put this video up just so maybe more of you have seen it, but if you haven't yet, I'm literally going to talk about the end and who wins. So, and just because you've read the book doesn't mean you know. So if you haven't seen it yet, stop watching now. Even though I ultimately ended up loving the changes to McVree's character, I was nervous at first. For most of the movie, he is helping Garrity not get his ticket. Whereas in the book, like, them helping each other, like, right before being shot is a bit more reciprocal. Like, they kind of have a back and forth throughout the Long Walk. So I feared McVree's was gonna ultimately end up as a stereotype that many Black characters in film have fallen into, which is just to be there to support the white character and ultimately help the white character win, survive, whatever it may be. And especially when it gets to the end of the walk and it's just them two and you see McVree's try to forfeit to Garrity, the physical reaction I had in the theater to that, which is crazy because in the book, Garrity wins, and I know Garrity wins in the book, and that's what I was expecting. But the way they were doing his character, I was like, it can't end like this. So I absolutely loved the change where McVree's does that, and then Garrity forces him to keep walking, and then when he's confident that McVree's is gonna continue walking, Garrity forfeits. Knowing that McVree's victory is going to come from a place of love versus his own, which is more selfish vengeance. Their conversation they have earlier in the movie about Garrity wanting to use his wish to kill the Major kind of solidified his potential death for me. That's where I kind of started to think maybe they're gonna change who wins. So Garrity thinks killing the Major will bring about good change, but it's ultimately a selfish revenge, because you have to ask yourself in the movie, and I did, like, would knowing this is his motivation for entering the Long Walk now within the world of this movie, would Garrity still have entered the Long Walk to kill the Major and bring about this good change if he hadn't seen his father executed in front of him by the Major? Honestly, I don't think so. And then McVree's ultimately does use his wish to kill the Major just how Ray would have, but the difference is McVree's is wanting to bring about change for his friend Ray is more from like an altruistic place of wanting the world to be a better place for everybody, and knowing that you can still want a better world where this violence is not present, but in the face of a tyrannical government that commits extreme violence on its citizens on the daily, sometimes violence is the answer. So I thought the changes made to the ending especially were incredibly poignant for today. And I'm so happy with the way they chose to like shift that kind of Vietnam allegory, which is still a good allegory in the book, don't misunderstand, but they shifted it to make it fit today in a really thoughtful way. And the fact that the way it ultimately ends is Garrity, a white man, voluntarily getting out of the way so that McVree's, a person of color, can enact the changes needed. That is what made this a great adaptation. And I also like that they kind of kept with the ending. So in the ending of the book, when the last person falls, Garrity just keeps walking, and that's how the book ends. So after McVree's shoots the Major, he turns around, he looks down the road, and he continues to keep walking. I feel like that really drove home this kind of message that change can't come from just removing like one tyrannical dictator. That's what the major represents. Like, you have to continually work for change. You have to keep walking. I thought this was a really, really good example of how an adaptation should be done. A masterclass, really. I've said this so many times now. I feel like it was really thoughtfully done. And it's definitely not lost on me that the movie was written by a white man, directed by a white man. It seems like they understood. It seems like they understood, at least where this story is concerned. The performances were also great. I felt for every single character. I really felt every death, but especially the character of Mick Breeze, who is played by David Johnson. He was magnetic, and I found myself hoping he would win early on in the movie. And going in, I had no idea that they were gonna change who the winner was. So the whole time I'm thinking Garrity is gonna win, but I was like, I found myself rooting for him through the movie. It was so well done. Overall, I'm saying that, in my opinion, The Long Walk is the best Stephen King adaptation to date. And I'm gonna hang my hat on that one for now until maybe a better one comes along. Can't wait to hear what you guys thought about it in the comments, especially if you've read the book or not. I want to know how it hits people differently, whether you know the story going in or you know what the book outcome is going in. I hope you liked this video. If you did, I don't know, give it a thumbs up or subscribe. I don't know. By the time you see this, I will be on a plane to Austin, Texas to cover Fantastic Fest, and the next video you see is going to be coverage of said Fantastic Fest. So definitely stick around and wait on that. I'm super excited. So I will see you then from Texas. Until then, stay strange. Bye.